Hi, I'm Greg Williams from The Money Geeks, and we help those with difficult or unusual circumstances get the finance they need. And as part of that, we've put together a Geeks guide to various different topics. And today we have got our Geeks guide to debt consolidation. So this is where I want to go into a little bit more detail about what it is you guys need to be looking for or looking at when consolidating your debts. Is it the right idea? What are the options available? Okay. Now, just before we start, I just want to make it clear that this can only be used as a general guide. Obviously, we can't really do recordings or general advice without knowing your circumstances. So this is just a guide, but a really useful guide at that. Okay. So if we first start off, what are we looking to learn today? So if we make this big, so what is debt consolidation? What are the advantages of it? What's the disadvantages of it? Is it right for you? What's the different types of debt consolidation, the steps you need to take if you are looking to consolidate, how to make a budget, how to follow a budget, and how to make the right decision for you as to whether debt consolidation is the right idea or not. And all of these we'll cover in approximately sort of 20-30 minutes. And if you've got any questions, you can let me know at the end. So, first of all, before we start, it's really good to get this out of the way. It keeps our compliance teams happy as well. So, you'd always think carefully before securing other debts against your home, although we're not just going to be looking at secured debts in this training. And obviously, your home or property may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage or any other debt secured on it. Okay, so now that's out of the way. What is debt consolidation? Debt consolidation, very simply, is a financial strategy that involves taking a new loan to pay off a number of smaller debts. Now, how you take that new loan out is what we'll talk about today. And does it matter? Does it make a huge difference to you? And what should you consider? So where we'll probably start is we'll probably start somewhere that's really unusual for these types of things. Is we'll probably start with some of the disadvantages. Okay, there's always disadvantages to everything we do, and especially when it comes to money, and especially when it comes to finances. Okay, so let's start with these. So, by consolidating your debts, it may not solve the underlying problem that caused the debt. And really, that's the first place you need to start. What it was it that actually caused this problem in the first place? Is this something that's going to happen again? Is it something that is going to go away? Was it a one-off event? If it's some sort of spending too much or whatever, this may not be the right choice in order to sort it out. Okay, it may have a negative impact on your credit score. Again, depending on what your credit score is like now, that may or may not be the case. So again, when you come to do this, ask an advisor to see whether it will have a negative impact, because sometimes it can have a positive impact as well. If you consolidate using a mortgage or a remortgage or secured loan, that's going to require some security. So you're going to have to put your property up. So if you don't pay it, obviously you could get repossessed, and it may take longer to pay off the debt and cost more in interest. So, for example, if you've currently got a 5-year loan and you consolidate that into a 20-year loan, you're effectively going to be paying 15 years more interest than what you would have done if you left it where it was. Okay, so that's something else to consider. Now, obviously, naturally, there are some advantages to this as well. Now, by consolidating it into one place, obviously, you're taking all lots of little payments which go out sort of various places of the month, and you're putting it into one. At that point, you've only got one monthly payment you need to consider. So that comes out on a set day of the month, and you know exactly what it's going to be. When you consolidate debt, you could potentially get a lower interest rate. Now, although in the long term you may pay more interest because you may take it out over a longer term, if you've currently got a credit card, for example, which is charging, say, 40% interest, and you take a loan and that's, say, 10% interest, obviously saving 30% worth of interest. And that's important because if you decided to do that, for example, let's say you took a debt consolidation loan out and you took that over, let's say, 5 years. If you can take the interest you're paying from 40% down to 10%, and generally they can be lower than that, then you're obviously, there's an automatic saving there. So your payment should reduce and you should pay it off a lot quicker than what you will at the minute. It can obviously help you pay off your debt faster by obviously reducing the term, and it can potentially lower your payments. Now, you, just as the same as anything, all of these generally don't fit into one solution. If you want lower payments, you've generally got to take it over a longer term. You'll pay more interest. If you're looking to just pay it off quickly and lower the interest, you might want to take a shorter term. And you need to work out that balance, work out your budget, and see what you can afford to pay every month. So it's really important that you consider that before you do any of these things. Is it right for you? I think this is probably a really important question, and probably one of the most important questions is, why are you doing it? What is it that's important? What are you trying to achieve? If you're trying to save on a monthly basis, again, consider where you want to be. So how much extra do you want every month? What's really going to make a difference to your life? Then go and look for that and see if you can find it. And there are different debt consolidation options that are available, and that's key to make sure that you're aware of that. And we'll cover a few of them in a second. So, how to choose the best debt consolidation options? So, there are a few different options that you can look at, and really, what you need to be looking at is, what's the cost of doing it? So, what's the fees in setting it up? What's the interest rate I'm going to be charged, and what's the repayment terms? Now, the best example I can give you of that is, let's say that you've currently got £10,000 outstanding on credit cards, but it's all on 0% interest. Then the fees and interest that you're going to pay in order to move the debt over on a debt consolidation option is probably going to be higher than 0%. In fact, you can almost guarantee it will be. So what are you trying to achieve? Now, there's a pro and con to that. If, for example, you wanted to, let's say, reduce your monthly payments, you may be looking to spread that over a longer term, and you'd be happy to maybe take the interest or pay the additional interest to do that. But on the other hand, if you can afford to pay a little bit more off the credit cards, now's the time to do it whilst they're still on 0%. So again, just weigh up the pros and cons and what you're looking to achieve. And that falls nicely into, think about your long-term financial goals. Where do you want to be? Why are you doing this? And again, consider the impact on your credit score. Timing is sometimes everything with these things. So if you did do a consolidation and it was going to negatively impact your credit score, then maybe you'd want to wait until, for example, you remortgaged to get something over the line, whether that be a new car or whatever, before considering this. But again, before you do any of that, probably best to seek advice, because doing something like that could mean that you actually fail the credit check for the debt consolidation. So always do your research, have a chat with whoever it is that's going to be providing the loan to see what the best option is. What's the different types of debt consolidation that you can look at? Now, obviously, there's a remortgage. You can remortgage, raise any additional money that you've got in your property. So if you've currently got equity in your property, and the best way to describe that, let's say you've got a property that's worth £100,000 and you've got a mortgage which has got £60,000 left on it, then you've got £40,000 worth of equity there. And some of that equity you may be able to get access to in order to use for debt consolidation or home improvements or whatever else. So when you're coming up to remortgage, always check that option. Balance transfer credit cards, again, you can use different credit card options to get really good interest rates. We can't advise on them, but you should always check them out to see whether that's an option. I know you've obviously got secured and unsecured loans. So the main difference between the two, unsecured loans, it's not secured against your property. So if you can't sell it, there's no immediate risk of being repossessed. But you can also take them out, or generally take them out, over a far shorter term. So if you take them out over, let's say, 5 or 7 years, that might actually increase the monthly payments that you're paying, which might be exactly what you're looking for to get rid of the debt. But by securing the debt, what that effectively does is it allows you to take it over a longer term. So very similar to your mortgage, it could be 20, 25, 30 years or whatever, and that will reduce, or could reduce, the monthly payments. So again, it depends on what you're looking to do. Now, I've seen some things around, for example, online that says or talks about debt consolidation and includes debt management as an option. Now, you may or may not disagree with me. Debt management really isn't debt consolidation. It's a completely different thing. So if you're looking at IVAs or debt management plans or debt relief orders or bankruptcy or whatever, then that's not consolidating debt. What we're talking about today is debt consolidation, which that may have a small impact on your credit file, but doesn't give you bad credit. IVA, debt management plans, all that sort of stuff, that will give you a bad credit file and seriously affect your credit score and your future credit options. I've put it on there because lots of people seem to be talking about it, but there's also a big red cross through it because really this is not debt consolidation. It is a completely different thing. So these are your 3 or 4 really main options. That is an option if you're really struggling with payments. Again, we can't advise on these things, but just know it exists. But all of those options will in some way, shape or form have a negative impact on your credit file. So be aware of that. Okay, so when you come to consolidate debts, what exactly do you need to do? Before you do anything, then you need to go and gather the information about your existing debts. You'd be surprised the amount of people that we speak to who just simply do not know what is going on with their existing debts. Okay, so you need to gather things like standing balance, the name of the lender, the current interest rate you're on, the payment that you're making, whether that's a minimum payment or anything like that. And only really when you've got all that information together will you really be able to do any type of comparison. Okay, so if you have a look, because if you've got a lot of stuff which is on 0%, you really need to know that. If you've got a lot of stuff which is on 40% interest rates, well, you need to know that too, because that really does come into play when you look at the sort of options and whether it's the right option for you. This next one, calculate debt to income ratio. We'll go into this a bit when we get on to budgeting, but basically debt to income is how much of your monthly payments are you making versus what your net monthly income is. So if your net monthly income is £1,000 a month and you were paying £500 a month on debt, your debt to income ratio is 50%. And the higher that number, the more risk you are to a lender, the more likely you are to get declined for credit. So try and keep that number as low as you possibly can, okay? And I won't really go into what's good and what's bad because every lender is slightly different. But just know that the lower the number, generally, the better the outcome. Shop around. Now, most brokers are able to go to the whole of the market, but then you will have other options like credit cards, like unsecured loans that not one place is able to advise on. So make sure you shop around and understand what options you've got. And make sure you have a look at the terms of the loan that you're going to be taking out. And the reason I say that is it's really important for you understand what it is you are getting into, and more importantly, the fees and the charges, A, to go in, and then B, to come out. If you did take, for example, a secured loan, to give that as an example, it works very similar to a mortgage. So you're going to have things like early repayment charges and that sort of stuff. So it's really important that you understand that before you go into it. And if you're not using a mortgage broker, it's even more important because a mortgage broker will, in theory, sort of point that out to you. Again, it's probably best we go back to just remind you that if you are going to use any of the options against your home, these are the risks involved. And again, we'll try and remind you of this as we go along. How to budget. So this seems like a very strange thing to put in there, but I don't know what it was like when you were in school, but they taught me how to measure the angle or work out what X was, or any other sort of ridiculous things that I've probably never learned or never used since, but they never really taught anybody how to budget. And there's various different ways you can budget, okay? And you may have this down to a T, and you're like, Greg, I know this stuff, and great. Some people may not, so this may be useful, okay? Now, the most popular way that I see of people doing this is using the rule, which is 50, 30, 20, okay? And if there is anything that you did learn in school, then it will probably be percentages, because that's really what we're looking at here. Okay, so 50%, 20%, and 30%. Okay, and this is with your net income. So the net income is what goes into your account after tax. So after all the deductions that come out. Okay, so 50%, or your first 50% of your income, you should dedicate to the things you absolutely need and what you absolutely need to live. So this will be your mortgage payment. This will be your rent if you're renting. This will be to put food on the table. Netflix really shouldn't be in that 50%, but I know a lot of you will probably think that it should be. But it's the 50% should be there for what it is you absolutely have to pay in order to keep a roof over your head, keep you fed, watered, and everything else. The next 30% should be the things that you don't really need. So this will be things like Netflix. This will be things like Amazon Prime or a Spotify membership or whatever it is. That, yes, is great, but you don't really need. And this is really where your debt payment should come from as well. So if you're going to take a loan or a new car or a credit card or whatever, you need to make sure it fits within that 30%. add it all up. If it doesn't, really think about whether you need it. Because if you take it out, if you go over that 30%, you're going to take it out from somewhere else. So you're either going to take it out from your essential living, so your mortgage and your rent, or you're going to take it out from the next 20%. And the next 20% is really savings. And a lot of people say, hang on, well, I probably don't need savings. We all need a little bit. And we're not talking tens of thousands of pounds here, but it's really good to have something to fall back on. So if, for example, the washing machine breaks, or if you own your own house and some disaster happens and you need to put it more, there's always a reason that you need some sort of bulk of money. And really the 20%, you should put 20% in until you get up to at least probably 3 months' wages, maybe even 4, as we're in a cost of living crisis. But it's really good to have that savings. And any time that you drop, or the savings drop below your sort of 3 or 4 months average wages, then you should really focus on making sure you get back up to that number. Having that amount in savings is always going to be a good idea when it comes to capital expenditure, and stop you having to get into any more debt. So 50% of your income should be on what you absolutely need to live. 30% could be for the non-essential stuff, including your debt payments, and 20% you should be dropping into a savings account. Okay, so if you use that method, that's really handy. And feel free, if you take nothing else away from that video, take that, because it really will help. Okay, how do you make the right decision? Listening to various different opinions is probably a good idea, but different opinions should have a different weight. So if you're talking to, I don't know, Mavis in the pub, that's probably getting advice from a professional advisor who's done this time and time again is probably a better option. But actually speaking to other people may not be a bad option, but just take it for what it is. Make sure you look at all your options, whether that be credit cards or unsecured loans or borrowing from family or whatever else. Make sure you look at all the information on your existing debts. You do not really want to be consolidating something and end up having to make more payments. And try and give yourself enough time. Don't rush into these things. It's if you need to rush, there'll be a reason behind that, and we can help you with that. But try and take your time. And just one more, just a little reminder that if you do consolidate or you do put anything against your property, then you risk repossession. So a little bit about us then. So obviously we are professional mortgage advisors. So we look at mortgages, remortgages, debt consolidation, whether that be secured loans or anything else. What we don't look at is any type of unsecured debt. We cannot help you with things like credit cards or unsecured loans or anything like that. But we can look at your options for you in terms of remortgaging or raising money out of your house for whatever reason. And obviously there's a couple of reasons to do that. We've got an award-winning team. We've got years and years and years of knowledge, and we've done this hundreds, not thousands of times before. So we've got a little bit of experience in this. It will definitely save you time, and hopefully it will also save you money by not making the wrong choice. And obviously we've got a wide range of options for you to consider as well. Okay. If you want to work with us, you want to find out what we can offer, we do offer the free consultation calls where we'll run through to see what options that you've got available and then we'll run through the monthly payments and the fees and everything else to go with it. And it's really important to note that we don't say yes to everybody. So when we discuss exactly what it is you're trying to achieve, and sometimes we'll actually say, this is really not a good idea for you. It's always worth touching base and finding out what it is that we've got to say. If you did want to work with us, then we've got some really limited availability of these really popular sessions. Just click on the link below, have a look to see, and you can just book a time that's suitable for you, and we'll give you a call, run through everything that you need to know, and then you can make any decisions that you need from there. If you've got any questions, feel free to get in touch and let us know during your call. Other than that, thank you very much. I'll speak to you soon.